Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on physical intelligence. It's one of the most secretive, most valuable startups in all of Silicon Valley. And we're going to see it all through the eyes of a TechCrunch journalist who got a rare look inside. So just picture this for a second. You walk into the headquarters of this super hyped company, and what's the first thing you see? A robot arm, just spectacularly failing to fold a pair of pants. And right next to it, another one is having a really hard time just turning a shirt inside out. Yeah, not exactly the slick, perfect future you were probably imagining. And right there, that's the big question, isn't it? This chaotic lab, filled with these clumsy-looking robots, is somehow valued at over $5.6 billion. So what in the world are investors seeing that we're not? Why is this mess supposedly the future? Well, the headquarters itself is not glamorous. It's basically a giant concrete box. There's no fancy receptionist, just a sea of tables with cookie boxes, robot parts, and, weirdly, jars of Vegemite, which is your first clue an Australian is involved here. It is all about function, definitely not form. And just look at the kinds of things these robots are trying to do. It's also normal, right? They're not performing surgery. They're learning tasks we do every single day without a second thought. They've even got one learning to use an espresso machine. Not to make coffee for the staff, but just to collect data on how to make a latte. And the key thing to remember is most of them aren't getting it right, at least not yet. And this really gets to the core of their entire philosophy. See, the hardware, the robot arms themselves, are intentionally cheap. They're totally off the shelf. We're talking arms that cost about $3,500, but could probably be built for under $1,000. The big bet here isn't on building a better robot body. It's on building a brain so incredibly smart it can make any body do amazing things. So where did such a radical idea even come from? Well, it's got its roots in the academic work of two absolute powerhouses in the field, UC Berkeley's Sergey Levine and Stanford's Chelsea Finn. The research they were doing basically paved the way for this whole thing. This is probably the single best way to understand what they're doing, and it comes straight from the co-founder himself. He says to think of it like ChatGPT, but for robots. You know how ChatGPT learned from basically the whole internet to understand language? Well, physical intelligence wants to build a model that learns from millions of physical tasks to understand the physical world. So how's it actually work? Well, it's all about this constant learning loop. Okay, so step one. You have robots in all sorts of different places. Labs, warehouses, even a test kitchen, and they're just trying to do stuff, collecting huge amounts of data. Step two, all that data gets crunched into one massive general AI model. And then step three, that new, smarter brain gets sent back out to all the robots to see how much they've improved. And then the whole cycle just starts right over again. And here's the real magic trick. It's this idea called cross-embodiment learning. What that really means is if they teach one kind of robot arm how to, say, peel a zucchini, a totally different robot with a different body doesn't have to start from square one. It can just inherit that knowledge of how to peel. Now, that is what makes this whole thing scalable. Of course, an idea this huge needs a true believer, someone to write that first big check. And they found him in Lackey Groom. After he left Stripe, he literally spent 5 years searching for the next world-changing idea. He saw the research from Levine and Finn and just knew this was it. And you know, when a believer like Lackey Groom gets on board, the money tends to follow. To date, this company has raised over $1 billion. I mean, that's just a staggering amount of cash for a company that's pretty much still in the R&D phase. And all that investment has pushed their valuation to an incredible $5.6 billion. That puts them right up there in the absolute top tier of AI startups anywhere in the world. Okay, but get ready for the craziest number of them all. When investors asked, so what's the timeline? When do you start making money? The answer they got was 0. There is no timeline, none. And Lackey Groom himself even admits just how weird this is. You have the biggest VCs in the world, we're talking Sequoia, Khosla Ventures, and they are pouring in hundreds of millions of dollars based on pure faith in the team and the vision. Not a business plan, they're putting up with a level of uncertainty that's almost unheard of, even for Silicon Valley. But here's the thing, physical intelligence is not alone in this race. And their biggest rival, a company called Skilled AI, is taking the exact opposite approach. And it's setting up this huge, high-stakes philosophical debate about the right way to build a robot's brain. So here's the divide in a nutshell. On one side, you've got physical intelligence.
They're all about pure research first. Let's build the perfect brain, then we'll figure out how to sell it. On the other side is skilled AI. They're doing the complete opposite. They're already out there in real warehouses, generating revenue, and using all that messy, real-world data to make their models smarter. And Skuld is not holding back. They've basically said publicly that any approach trained only in a lab is going to lack, and this is their phrase, true physical common sense. They're arguing you can only get that kind of intelligence from being out in the real world. It is a direct shot at their competition. So you have to be wondering, why on earth would anyone bet all this money on the research-first strategy, the one with zero revenue? Well, because as crazy as it sounds, this is the classic Silicon Valley playbook. It's a pattern we've seen over and over again. You find some brilliant, visionary people who've spotted a fundamental shift in technology. You give them a giant pile of money with very few strings attached. You let them build and burn cash for years with no pressure for revenue. Now, most of these bets fail, but when one hits, the payoff is so astronomically huge, it makes up for all the other losses.
And here's a little inside scoop that explains why investors are so confident. The team originally laid out a research roadmap that they thought would take them 5, maybe even 10 years to get through. They did it all in just 18 months. The progress they're making is happening at a speed that even they didn't see coming.
Which brings us right back to where we started. On the one hand, you have this multi-billion-dollar bet on a team that's basically creating the future of robotics, and on the other hand, you have a robot arm still struggling to fold a simple pair of pants. So the big question is, will this massive, unconventional bet actually change the world? Or are some problems, like doing the laundry, just way harder than they look?